Hey folks, this is Kelani. In my previous video I mentioned that the rares down in Nazjatar and some of the ones on Mechagon Island were given a little bit of a buff in one of the more recent public test realm builds. They went from being super easily soloable to destroying your face in a few seconds, depending on what class you are and how careful you're approaching them. So some rares are going to be pretty difficult to take down if you're on your own, but is it going to be worth it? Let's have a look at the rares down in Nazjatar, how difficult they are with the recent changes, how many rares can be active at once, and what kind of rewards they're currently offering. There's also a whole bunch of little consumables scattered around Nazjatar that can help you in your rare slaying adventures, and I guess the rest of your adventures as well, so we'll touch on those too. So, how hard are some of these rares? I've been playing around on a few classes, but mostly sticking to my Priest and Demon Hunter. I can tell you that my Shadow Priest has almost no chance against some of these rares if I were to try and tackle them alone. So if you're a squishy toon without any backup from a pet and whatnot, you might need to find a group more often than not. On my Demon Hunter, I can handle a little bit more as a DPS thanks to the survivability they have, but even then I still get trucked by some of these rares. Now, even though some of them are quite difficult, there is also some decent variety of how strong the rares are. Some have 300,000 health and fall over fairly easily, but they are surrounded by other monsters. Others have 500,000 health and are on their lonesome. Those are the easy ones. You should be able to solo those without too many issues no matter what you're playing. Some of the beefier ones have 1.5 million health. You might need some backup on that kind of rare, and then there are ones with 3 million health too. I can't touch those rares on my Demon Hunter as a DPS, not when I'm on my own, but I can spend 4 or 5 minutes chipping away at their health bar if I spec tank. Thankfully, with how the mob tagging works these days, any random chaps who pass by the rare you're looking at will hopefully chip in and help you take them down. I've always found it kind of funny how when you're staring down a rare monster with just the two of you in the immediate area, thinking whether or not you can take this on, all it usually takes is for you to throw a single spell and then suddenly people start popping out of the woodwork. It's like they know a rare that requires a group was just engaged and they better make the most of it before everyone disappears again. To make this easier, pretty much everyone is going to be hunting rare spawns in Nazjatar for a variety of reasons. It's actually a huge part of what makes the zone tick. If you're not hunting rares in Nazjatar, chances are you're going to get left behind in a variety of ways. Something else that is kind of interesting is that some rares are in a pretty awkward to reach location. The Soundless Rare is a big ray who floats atop some of the coral in the coral forest. I can get up there as a Demon Hunter fairly easily, but good luck to anyone else who doesn't have a double jump. Hopefully he will patrol around in areas where you can pull him down with a ranged ability, but there's another rare that comes to mind who is in a hard to reach spot as well. This chap just floats up in the air, way higher than you can reach with a ranged attack, and I've tried climbing up and around the cliff where he is. I can't seem to get to him. Maybe there's a little minigame that I haven't come across yet, or you can pull him down using a special item. I'll keep looking, but for now he's an annoying star on my map that I can't get rid of. So how about we touch on some rewards? Perhaps the most important reward that rares will give you is reputation with your Nazjatar faction. That's the Unshackled for the Horde and the Ann Cohen for the Alliance. Every rare that you kill will give you 50 reputation, so not all too much in the grand scheme of things, but when you consider the fact that you only get 5 or so world quests each day and 3 or 4 daily quests, you start to realise that you don't have many avenues to collect this new reputation. So running around the zone hunting rares is going to give you a nice big chunk of rep on top of your daily activities. Alongside the all-important rep, they also have actual loot. Thankfully, every rare that I've killed drops a bit of Azurite. Yay Azurite! Which is going to be very important going forward, as you'll want to unlock more slots in your Heart of Azeroth to use more essences in patch 8.2. They're a huge upgrade, so AP grinding is going to come back in full force, so at least those shards of Azurite will be going to good use. Now, I said actual loot, but apart from those two things, I haven't really seen anything super magical, which might be a case of this just being the PTR, or it might be a case of Blizzard not knowing what to put on the rare loot tables. I assume we'll see plenty of toys, pets and mounts when the patch goes live. That's what kept people coming back for the Arathi and Darkshore rares, right? Even though the majority of rares didn't really seem to drop anything, I did get one pet, so I can confirm that some pets are in the rare loot tables. That's kind of cool, and the Soundless Rare is confirmed to drop a rare mount. It's the black coloured new Ray model, so good luck with obtaining that one. It's a pretty sweet mount. That's kind of the new Hulon of this area. I sort of expected rares to tie in with the new catch-up mechanic, at least a little bit though, either by dropping the benthic gear tokens, which allow you to create 385 pieces of loot, or by dropping the new mana pearl currency, which is used for a variety of things, including buying essences, progressing quests, and upgrading the benthic gear. But I haven't had any benthic tokens or any mana pearls whatsoever, and I've killed a lot of rares, so that's a bit strange. Mana pearls are pretty rare right now on the PTR too, with some of the changes that they've made, so I wonder what they're going to do there, if anything. If they're supposed to be rare, you know, that's all fine and dandy if that's what they're supposed to be, but a lot of things are going to take a very long time to acquire if that's the case. Rares would be a great place to reward some mana pearls, I think, because outside of the rep, they're not all too exciting or enticing right now. So if mana pearls were tied to the rares, that's already more than enough to get people out into the world to try and hunt these down. So that's the rewards you can expect if things don't change from the PTR, but remember that the PTR doesn't reflect how this will look when patch 8.2 goes live. Plenty of things could change between now and then. But what about where these rares are in the zone and how many are active at once? Well, I ran around Nazjatar a few times to make sure I didn't miss anything, and I can safely say that you can find rares pretty much everywhere in Nazjatar. I know there's more rares than what I captured on this specific map because I've seen them in previous days and previous weeks, but they didn't seem to be active when I was making these notes. What I wanted to do more than anything with this particular set of data was to see how many were active at any given time, because we know that rare spawns down in Nazjatar have a longer respawn timer or they're going to rotate, and they'll be a little more exclusive with how they spawn. They're not going to be up constantly forever just waiting to be killed over and over for the rest of the expansion. Some won't be active for a few days, some will have special summoning requirements, all that good stuff. That means you might get 10 rares in one day, 12 in the next, and they can all chop and change when they're active or not. When I did my laps around Nazjatar today, I found 14 rares active at the same time. That's quite a lot of rares to work your way through. I believe the 1 day lockout that applied to zones like Argus will apply to these rares, so you should be able to kill them once per day and still receive loot and goodies, including that reputation. So it's going to be super important to come back each day to clear off your map of rares, because 14 rares will give you 700 reputation. That's a pretty decent chunk of your potential rep gains of any given day, so Nazjatar is definitely going to be a bit of a grind. Which could be a good thing if you've been missing your dose of grind in World of Warcraft recently. Now, even if you're wandering around Nazjatar and the squishiest character that ever existed, you might still have a chance against some of these buffed up rares thanks to the consumables you can find lying around the zone. There's damage buffs, defensive buffs, you name it. One of the daily quests actually introduces you to these quite nicely by requiring you to pick up at least one of each while adventuring around the zone. So let's see what we have to work with. Perhaps the most powerful consumable comes from these archaic shrines. These can be found in the Night Elf ruin areas of Nazjatar, so the far right side of the map typically. When you click on a shrine, a few white balls will appear which start dropping a whole bunch of reddish looking balls. Collecting those balls will grant you 1% haste and a 2% damage increase for 5 minutes. That can stack up to 20 times, which ends up being a huge buff. The 5-minute timer is a bit short, so you'll have to be quick to make the most out of your souped up character, but the good news is that picking up a single orb from another shrine will maintain your 20 stack and refresh the duration, so as unlikely as it may be, if you find a shrine every 5 minutes, you can keep this buff indefinitely. You can also find the poisonous spiral leaf plant in a lot of the Naga camp areas of Nazjatar. This one is a bit of a double-edged sword. Using the plant will grant you a 5% increased damage buff for 30 seconds, but you'll also take 2% of your health as poison damage every 3 seconds. That might not sound too bad, and it typically isn't when you only pick up one plant at a time, but if you really want to, you can stack this particular consumable as well. Each stack gives you an extra 5% increased damage, and also takes away another 2% of your health every 3 seconds. So yeah, as you can probably imagine, you can end up killing yourself pretty quickly with these poisonous plants if you aren't too careful, but for anyone who can self-sustain really well, it's basically a free damage boost. Another consumable you can find is the kelp buds. These are available pretty much anywhere in Nazjatar from what I've seen, and they provide you with a shiny 5% increase to all of your stats. A nice well-rounded buff that should be good for pretty much everyone, and it lasts for 10 minutes. Now sadly you can't stack this one up at the moment. If you use another kelp bud, you'll just refresh the duration to the max of 10 minutes, so that's a max boost of 5% to your stats, but it's still going to be nice for anyone running around Nazjatar looking for a little bit of extra help. If you want some extra damage reduction, there's a consumable for that as well. The impregnable cone shell will give you a 5% damage reduction buff which lasts for 5 minutes. This one can stack, and I believe it caps out at 5 stacks for a total of 25% damage reduction. Sadly, the 5-minute timer can't be extended, so you'll have to find more shells if you want to keep your buff rolling. Shells are pretty widespread as well, though I tend to find more of them in the Murloc and Crab areas of Nazjatar, kind of where you first start your adventures in this new zone. Another useful consumable is the deep coral buds. These can be found in the coral forest, and they're actually attached to the tree things here, and you'll have to do some damage to knock them down. It is a little annoying if you're a melee DPS, but they don't have too much health, so you can get them down eventually. The coral buds will instantly heal you for 10% of your max health when used, so you can save them for when you're in a bit of a pickle and need that extra health potion. They also give you a bit of an extra bounce when you jump, which lets you jump higher and longer, so that could be useful for getting into the coral trees to get to some of the mobs hiding up there. It also seems faster than just walking, which is nice, and it's just fun to jump around sometimes. The last item you can find that provides some semblance of a buff is the Angel Scale Starfish. When you pick these up, you'll gain stealth for 20 seconds, so you can pretend to be a rogue for a bit and maybe try to do something useful with it. Whenever I tried, I always ran out before I got close to what I wanted to do, but you might find 20 seconds of stealth quite useful depending on where these items are. If there's a bunch of mobs you want to sneak past and there's a starfish right there when you need it, well, fantastic. Jobs are good, no problem. I did a test to see if this works kind of like a vanish at all, but it doesn't seem to drop your aggro on any monsters, so don't expect these starfish to save you if you get in over your head. And that's all the consumables in Nazjatar, or at least the ones I've found so far anyway. If anything else does exist, it must be pretty rare because I've spent a lot of time in this zone already. The great thing about these buffs being widely available in the zone is that they're not just helpful for when you're trying to take down some of the more difficult rares. If you're a little behind in item level, or you're playing some of your lesser geared alts, these buffs could be the difference between completing your story quests and world quests and getting stomped by every monster that gives you a sideways glance. Giving our alts a fighting chance so they can do the content and start gearing up with the benthic gear is going to be nice. But that's it for this video. What do you think of the consumables in Nazjatar from what you've seen so far? How do you think rare spawns should work in World of Warcraft? Is the once per day rotating rares something you can get behind, or do you think rare spawns shouldn't really be available as often? Should they be easy to solo, or should they always require a group to kill? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you want to join these lovely guys and gals, you can find a link in the description below. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave. If you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.